we are once again working on the box. Piece number 2. He stops weighing. I'm going to make my viewers motion sick. Provided that the large gems are not just straight up too heavy to be lifted by the pen, a way you can make it so you can lift them with the pen is to really put quite a lot of the sticky clay into it, like almost overdo it straight up. Come on, there you go. Almost exactly as much as I needed. There we go. Not that that's going to actually stay on there for very long. These pieces work up relatively quick considering their surface area. Decent amount of 10 near the start of the last one, so we'll do that again. Let's just throw it all over the place. Why not? That's fine. If it's got lost somewhere, I'll find it later. So it does appear to have gone into the thing where it needed to go. I hope when they drop off that package later today, they don't ring the doorbell. I don't like it when the doorbell rings. One, the dog's go nuts, which is not necessarily a pleasant experience. And it's a very grating sound. And I don't like talking to people at the door. People like me is why they invented ring cameras. Anyway. What is supposed to arrive is a cookbook for cold lunches that you can send specifically for kids to school. My older child is not as picky as he used to be, but he's still pickier than I'd like him to be for lunches. And then there's also the trick of his school doesn't have microwaves or fridges and stuff for the kids to be putting their lunches into, which is not a huge deal as far as the fridge aspect goes. Generally speaking, I'm not usually sending stuff with him that needs a whole lot of refrigeration time. It's usually not shelf stable to such a degree that you would like it comes home and you send it with him the next day or something, but stable enough that like if they were going on like a field trip or something, I wouldn't necessarily change what I send with him. But he also, whether he knows it or not, but I have noticed the pattern that he prefers variety. I cannot, for example, send him the exact same thing every day for lunch. Even if I sent the same thing, say, 2 days in a row, the second day, even if it's a food he really likes, he will not eat as much of it. The second day is what he does on the first. So, and even if it's something like, say I sent him a sunflower butter sandwich on Monday, if I sent him a cheese sandwich, which is something he also likes, on Tuesday. He wouldn't necessarily eat as much of that because he had just had a sandwich. So I am hoping to get more things as ideas what to send with him. But I also just know that a certain amount of it is just exposure at this point. Children do not get used to food that they have never experienced, so I'm also interested to see what it's going to be like for the quantity of food I send him, because sometimes he spends more time, I think, talking and playing at lunchtime than he does eating, at which point he doesn't, even if it's a food he likes, then he doesn't eat all of it. But then again, he's also been eating a lot lately. We're not sure if he's gearing up for a growth spurt or something, or just having been more active or something, or the fact that he's bigger, he just needs more food, but he's been a lot more hungry lately, so he's been eating a lot more lately, so we'll see what comes back from lunch today. But the cookbook was supposed to arrive today, and I think there was something else that was in the package too. Of course, now I don't remember what that something is, but it doesn't matter that much. Pardon me while I get some iced tea. I tend to do an overnight steeped iced tea, so I get a 2-liter jug and I fill it with water, and I put in usually a caffeine-free type of tea, just because ever since being pregnant my body does not tolerate caffeine anywhere near as much as it used to when I was younger. So I cannot have any sort of caffeinated beverage whatsoever after like 6 o'clock. And at that point, that's limited to stuff more like, say, cola or something. So none of that after 6. I can't have tea after 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Like 4 o'clock is a hard line. And I can't have coffee after noon. If I violate any of those 3 boundaries or lines in the sand, whatever you want to call them, then I will be unable to go to sleep until like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Which, when you have small children that wake up at 6 or 6:30 in the morning, does not leave space for proper sleep. And I am the daytime parent. One of those children is not in school yet, so I do have, because the younger one does nap still, I do have a little bit of grace if I happened to not sleep super well the night before. I do have a bit of space where I could take a nap, but that is also prime time for getting chores done that I want to be able to focus on without having to wrangle a child in the middle of it, or doing something like this task where I want to focus on it. One of the problems, for instance, with painting is that if I paint while the children are awake, the children want to paint too. That's not as big of a deal with the older one, because he can follow instructions, / I can just supply him with paint and he can just do it on his own. But the little one paint with Mummy, and he will want to paint on what Mummy is painting, whether that is paper, a rock, card, any other of the random things that I've painted in the past. And he doesn't yet comprehend that you need to rinse your brush between picking up colors unless you're doing a very specific kind of technique. It will come in time, but particularly if I'm doing a commission or if I'm working on something that I intend to list for sale or to have as stock at like a craft fair or something, then that's actually become somewhat problematic. Because if it's something just for me and my house, then depending again a little bit on what it is, it's not such a big deal, but yeah, if the rules change a little bit when you're doing it for someone else. It's a little bit like with crochet or knitting or things. There's a certain amount of errors or accidents in like a pattern or something that, provided it's not too catastrophic, if it's something for me, I won't necessarily mind, because if I don't care, why should anybody else? But like if it's again, a commission piece, then it actually does matter, because it might matter slightly more to someone that one pixel, so to speak, of a lace pattern is out of place. So it all depends. Should get that 12 in so that those spaces are filled. But on my 7s, I believe that is on my 7s. Yeah. So I think I'm almost done this one because I think I need to adjust the way I'm sitting slightly. And I could, in theory, do this in that chair, but that would require me to hook my thing to the shelf. Possibly. Anyway. It is a possibility, but not one I'm willing to entertain right now. Okay, well, I know already that I cannot pick these up with the pen, so I'm going to leave that there and just do this with my fingers. Got some, not classwork, but school-related type stuffs to just review with my son when he gets home. Mostly for practice with reading and English skills primarily. That's the focus. Because it is in a not insubstantial class. There's about 25 kids in it. And they have one teacher, and I'm not sure if they actually have any EAs. And last year, he struggled quite a bit with the reading, so we are trying to get ahead of things somewhat this year for these. Like last year, we didn't realize that he was falling behind until not fully midway, but probably at least a quarter into the year. So we don't want to have that happen again. So I'm going to start him off a little bit earlier, which might also work out because there is a non-zero chance of a teacher's strike this year. I think last year we had an EA, so educational assistant strike, which didn't directly affect us too much, just because our son is not one of the ones that requires an EA, but it did affect other kids in his class. So, but this year we are looking at a potential teacher strike, which would affect him. So I figure I do well to be somewhat prepared, and if he's at least partially used to doing school stuff with me, then that is for the better. Because practically speaking, he does, I think, well enough in class that he's in kind of that gray area where the teacher kind of has to focus more on the kids that aren't doing as well. So then he doesn't necessarily, and this is really why we need more teachers in classrooms, why we need more EAs and such, is that the kids that are really quick with the learning and pick things up really fast don't get the same kind of encouragement to go beyond the base skills. The kids that do well enough that they're not falling behind don't get the same kind of, they don't get the kind of attention that they would need to really, really excel in the school system, because the teachers need to focus on the ones that need help to do average, which is, I can understand it from the teacher's point of view. It's kind of a triage system almost, where if you need them to at least get to a baseline where they can get to a higher grade, but you can't develop the other ones in quite the same way. So we are attempting to cover some of that ground at home. We are in, my husband and I are in a pretty good position to do so, partially because while we do have overlap in our interests, oddly enough, being married, I think that's kind of a default, but the subjects at which we understand quickly and which we excelled in school are almost all completely opposite. So, not that I couldn't do it, but my husband greatly excelled at math and history and chemistry and physics and, did I say history already? History and all that kind of stuff. So he did really well with those, sciences and stuff like that. I also did quite well with the sciences, but more particularly with biochemistry and animal sciences and zoology, and later on, granted, because I didn't learn that much about it in school. It's a story for another day. Evolution theory, anatomy, physiology, arts, music too. So, but we both did quite well in music. That's kind of one of our overlaps. But natural sciences, weather systems, that kind of stuff, that was more my forte. English was, we both did quite well with English, but we have very different natural strengths. Like my husband is very good part of this is also reflected in occupation. My husband is very good at technical writing. He's very good at, either way, he was very good at like writing essays and things like that. He did extremely well in school. I can pass, I can get passed on essays, but where I excel is creative writing. So as far as that goes, we have kind of just about any area our son shows an interest in. At least one of us, if not both of us, can engage him seriously on that subject. So hopefully we don't have a teacher strike, but we shall see what will happen. If they do, it's not great for me. I would prefer to have him in the social learning environment, but by the same token, kind of the collective action is one of the only tools that workers have against unfair working conditions. So if they need to use the tool, then I respect them for that. Would it work better for me if they didn't? Yes, but that's also kind of the point. There we go. Piece number 2 finished. Join me soon for piece number 3.